So today we're going to talk about the other team that got eliminated in the conference final and the team that lost in the Eastern Conference the final, that is the Philadelphia Union. Now, anytime when I talk about them, obviously one thing that's going to bring up is the COVID outbreak that happened before that Eastern Conference final game against NYCFC. And I'm going to kind of reiterate what I said about New England in my moving forward series, talking about the Revs, of the fact that yes, I know Union fans are going to be very upset about that the COVID outbreak happening before the game, and the fact that they were literally playing their kids in that game against NYCFC in a crucial game like that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to win MLS Cup or even be in MLS Cup, you're going to have to face adversity. And if you would have told to the coaching staff and those players, they're not going to use that as an excuse for them of the reason why they weren't able to move on into MLS Cup. And in fact, when you look at overall in terms of the playoff run that the Union has, which, despite the fact that it was definitely a great playoff run and they got further than any Union team has ever had in their franchise history, there was definitely a lot of flaws, more than just the COVID outbreak. That was one of the big thing that kind of damaged their chances of potentially reaching MLS Cup. But overall, in terms of regular season, they finished with a 14-12-8 record with 54 points. They scored 48 goals this season, which, I had to kind of double check to see if that number is correct, because I know this is a Union team that has had problem in terms of scoring. So the fact that, 48 goals, that seems like a little bit high for a team that has been having numerous issue in terms of the goal scoring department. But nevertheless, they gave up 35 goals, which I believe that's the third fewest in the league, and that we all know that this is a team that, as much as they do struggle in terms of scoring goals, it kind of made up for it because they have a rock-solid defense, and they have a goal differential of plus 13. They finished second in the Eastern Conference, but they were eliminated in the Eastern Conference final by NYCFC, and they also were the last team standing in CCL in terms of MLS team this year, with them knocking out in the semifinal by Club America in CCL. Top goal scored for the Union, Kasper Schmeichel finished with 12 goals, but there's already now whisper the fact that he's not going to be coming back to the Union. There's whisper the fact that he is going to be going to the Chicago Fire. And, Kasper Schmeichel, his time with the Union, especially for this year, it's kind of a mixed opinion if you ask any Union fan. I mean, some Union fan says that, he's still the top goal scorer. He's still our main number 9. That is a guy that can definitely score the goals that we need. But then you can also ask some Union fans that say they're very frustrated about how Schmeichel has been performed, because he has missed some big opportunity, and he virtually was non-existent in the playoff run and in those free playoff games that the Union was in. But after that, you got Sergio Santos with 6 goals, followed by Corey Burke with 4 goals, Daniel Gastag with 4 goals, and Paxton Aronson finished with 3 goals to round out the top 5 goals scored for the Union. Assist leader, you got Kai Wagner, who has been linked with a lot of interest in Europe lately, finished as the top assist leader with 7 assists, followed by Jamer Montero with 6 assists, Daniel Gastag with 5 assists, Olivier Bizo with 4 assists, and Kasper Schmeichel also with 4 assists to finish the top 5 assist leader for the Philadelphia Union. So what went right for the Union? Well, they were the last team standing in terms of MLS team in CCL. I mean, they weren't really the last team standings. I mean, if they were the last team standing, then they would have made history of being the first ever MLS team to win the CONCACAF Champions League, but they were the last team standings. And I think when I talk about that video where I look at all the teams and in terms of their path to CCL and who most likely is going to win it, which, by the way, I'm definitely going to be doing a video like that in the upcoming days, because the CONCACAF Champions League is going to happen in a couple of weeks. I mean, I know the new season is going to start in about a month time, but CCL is going to start as soon as we hit mid-February, so I'm going to start definitely doing a video talk about each teams and their path to make some history of winning the CCL, becoming the first ever MLS team to do so. But I didn't think when I made that video last year that the Union was going to do so. In fact, I said that they were one of the least likely, and they weren't even going to get past in that all MLS kind of CCL matchup between them and Atlanta United in the quarterfinal. And it turns out that they were able to beat Atlanta to make it into the semifinal, and we all know what happened after that. They actually got better after they were eliminated from CCL, which this is kind of remarkable, because when you look at the last couple of times when the last team standing in CCL that is an MLS team, they turns out to have a really bad season, and it's almost feel like we've seen a lot of MLS team when they really prioritize the CONCACAF Champions League, and the fact that they kind of come up short, they know that their season is probably not going to go so well. I mean, that's kind of the reason why I said before about how when teams go into the CONCACAF Champions League, you almost have to pick your poison. Do you want to commit in this competition and make some history of becoming the first MLS team to potentially win the competition, and most likely is going to face a situation where you're not going to do well for the rest of the season, or you don't even focus on CCL, maybe focus on the league a little bit. And for the Union, they kind of proved for once that you can actually still do well even after you go on a long CCL run. Now, granted, it does help the fact that doing last year, the CCL kind of format was spread out throughout the whole year. And I think, when you look at the past couple of years with the way that CCL was kind of like there at the beginning of the year, teams kind of dig themselves in a big hole in terms of trying to get themselves dig out of it, because they were so focused on CCL and they were kind of punting all those games away early so that they can of course field the strongest squad when CCL comes. But that being said, you can also kind of make the argument the fact that after when the Philadelphia Union was eliminated in the CONCACAF Champions League, they were in ninth place in the Eastern Conference. Like, this team was not in a great position whatsoever, and I thought that loss against Club America, which was, that second loss was such a painful loss, considered they were by far the better team in that one, and if it wasn't for bad finishing, they probably would have pulled off a big upset and move on into the final of that competition. But in terms of a morale perspective, that could have been very damaging to this Union team, but instead that's not the case. I mean, this team would end up finish the season with a record of 6-4-1 and would get themselves all the way back up to second place in the Eastern Conference. And it's kind of one of the rare times where a team actually got much better and started performing even better even after a long CCL run that they endured. And then, not to mention, the other thing went right for this team is the rock solid defense. I mean, it's not only the defense is rock solid for this team, but when you have one of the best goalkeeper in Andre Blake, yeah, that of course helped to show why the Union doesn't concede a lot of goals. Though I will say that a lot has to do with Andre Blake, who once again had a spectacular year. And there's just some games where he single-handedly win the game for the Union. Like, he single-handedly was making some incredible save and stealing game for the Union. I mean, I can't say more of how of a goalkeeper that Andre Blake has had, and the fact that last season, if it wasn't for Matt Turner also having an incredible year, he would have been right up there in terms of potentially winning the goalkeeper of the year again. So what went wrong for this Union team? So, as it is the case with this team that kind of is the most talk about after when they got eliminated in the Eastern Conference Final, is the COVID outbreak. I mean, they chose the worst time to have the COVID outbreak right before when they had that crucial game against NYCFC in the Eastern Conference Final. And again, we'll never know whether or not, if they do get those guys that they were missing from COVID and able to get them back, and maybe things will be a little bit better. But one thing for sure, it doesn't help the fact that they had to pretty much play their kids, which I will say that, I said before with the Union, if there is one team that is forced to have to play their kids and have to play their reserve, the Union is probably the most set up to do so, because that this Union team with the kids that they have, these are kids that are potentially not only going to be great players in MLS, but guys that could potentially sold off to Europe for a big sum of money. So guys like Jack McLean, Paxton Aronson, and Quinn Sullivan, these guys are kind of the next generation of this Union Academy that is going to do well with the Union before getting sold off to Europe for a big amount of money. So it's not like they weren't completely decimated, and that they have to force their kids to put in an uncomfortable situation. I think those kids were kind of adapt to it, and it kind of showed in that game against NYCFC, where I thought in that game against NYCFC, the Union were the better team for majority of the game. And it's just the other thing that is kind of a problem doing that game that kind of comes back to bite them, and could have bite them in the first two playoff win that they had, is the attack. The attack and finishing was basically near non-existent in the playoffs. Like, the fact that they only scored 3 goals in the playoffs and they were able to make it into Eastern Conference Final is nothing short of a miracle. Like, you score that amount of goal, you probably might get eliminated maybe in the second round of the playoffs. And not to mention, you look at those 3 goals that they score. One of them was an absolute banger from Jacob Glesnes. The other was a scrappy goal that Daniel Aztec was fortunate to put it away. And then the third goal that they scored, and the only goal that they scored against NYCFC, was an own goal by one of the NYCFC back or one of the NYCFC center back, and I think it was Callens, the one that scored the own goal. So basically, yeah, they were relying on a lot of luck in terms of scoring goals scoring goals in the playoffs. And it's also not like their attack was really kind of like non-existent in a way where they didn't even try. I mean, there's times where they do put some good attack, but just the finishing was absolutely atrocious from this Union team. And the fact that, again, they made it to the Eastern Conference Final, besides having that is such a liability, shows a lot of how their rock-solid defense really carry this team as far as they can. And then, of course, the last thing that went wrong is a disappointing CCL exit, despite the fact that they were dominating Club America in the second leg. And if they would have scored a second goal, because I think in that game they were leading 1-0, and if they would have scored that second goal, I think they would have tied the aggregate score. If they would have scored that second goal, not only the momentum is with them, but they might went on to cause one of the biggest upset we have seen in CCL history by knocking off Club America, and also kind of do something similar that LAFC did a couple of years ago when they played Lyon in the round of 16. But nevertheless, moving forward for this Union team, obviously they need a new number 9 and some attacking reinforcement. Like I said, Shabelko, he's most likely going to be leaving this team, so that they definitely need a guy that is going to be kind of like the Shabelko of the world. I mean, again, I don't think Kasper Shabelko played very, very badly this season. I mean, I know Union fans maybe over-criticize him, especially his playoff performance, but overall, as a number 9, and you're able to put 10-plus goals in a season, that's a pretty good season. So, I'm kind of maybe in some way a little surprised that they decide to move on from him, but nevertheless, I think they were kind of looking more toward his post-season record, and yeah, that I think that they might feel like it's time to move on from him, despite like that he has done well in the regular season, and that he just doesn't perform well in the postseason. But besides that, they also need some attacking reinforcement. I mean, besides Shabelko having an absolute nightmare in the postseason, the same goes with Sergio Santos and Jamer Montero. I mean, Santos, I've made so much kind of little jokes about how he just not allowed to score a goal in the playoffs. Like, I think it was that game against Nashville, or was it in that game against the Red Bulls, where I've said multiple times that it seems like he's just snake bit. Like, no matter what he tried to score a goal, he's just not allowed to score one. And that's just got to be one of the most frustrating thing if you're an attacker, where no matter how hard you try, you just could not able to bury into the back of net. And that also is kind of just shows you that, I know probably Santos and Montero is going to be there next season, but there's no doubt this Union team need more attacking reinforcement, and need guys that not only can do well in the regular season, but when clutch time is happening and it's the postseason, they can also do well and continue that excellent performance that they show in the regular season. Expect the homegrown kids to play more minutes. I mean, I've said before how the Union has one of the best academy in the league, and I've also mentioned that homegrown trio with Sullivan, McGlynn, and Aronson, how I expect them to get more minutes. I mean, they already had a lot of minutes, playing more than I thought in their time when they were promoted into the senior team. I expect they're going to get more minutes, especially if there are going to be some players this offseason that is going to be depart off to Europe, because the Union is a team where there are a couple of players that it drawing a lot of interest. And the other thing moving forward for them is that, let's see if they maybe decide to kind of sell them, or trying to hold on to those players. Like, ideally, they want to hold on to those players. So guys like Kai Wagner and Leon Flock, they want to hold on to those players for maybe at least until the end of or until the summer transfer window happen, and see what happened, because it would be great to hold on to those players and maybe make one last great run with those players before they do eventually sell them off to Europe for a big sum of money. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And if you're a Union fan, what do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But yeah, until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.